natural disasters, and we had some. Well, we had the terrible attacks of September 11th. I certainly needed a lot of help from the federal government, but I didn't need as much help maybe as a smaller state might, or a smaller city that didn't have 41,000 police officers and 11,000 firefighters and 11,000 corrections, and a big state, and a governor like Governor Pataki who could join me and put in the National Guard. So some states and some localities need more help from the federal government, some less. They all need help. It looks to me like that the whole situation in California, which is horrible and tragic, and our prayers go out to everybody involved in it. And we probably all have some friends that are infected by it. I do. I think the response looks pretty good from what I can see. It looks like Governor Schwarzenegger is, as you would imagine, on top of it, because he's like that. Got to be a comfort to have the Terminator handling things for you. Right? It's got to be a real comfort to have him out there. And it looks like the emergency plan they have, state and local, is working. It looks like the federal government is contributing a lot of help. It looks, unlike Katrina situation, this looks like a situation where it's working. And it doesn't mean that there won't be some terrible things that happen, and it won't mean that some mistakes aren't made. But generally, I think this is going to work pretty well. It looks that way, at least from the government response. And maybe a good model for how to do it in the future. From the federal government's point of view, I have a commitment here that we will get every state and every local government in this country up to a level of preparation so that they're capable of dealing with the hazards that they face. And everybody in this country is subjected to the possibility of terrorist attack. Doesn't mean that most of this country is going to be attacked. It isn't. This is the worst part of it. This is a psychological thing. The terrorists can't attack us continuously. They can only attack us very occasionally and in a shocking way, except we don't know where. So we got to be prepared everywhere. And if we're prepared for it, and we're prepared from the right way, it can help us be better prepared for natural disaster. I think California may be showing that. I think Florida showed that back in 2004 when they had the 4 hurricanes, and we're really getting pounded by that. Some reporter on the radio asked me about that today. And that was a really good response Florida had. And then, Katrina wasn't a good response. So we're going to have to make sure that everybody in the country is up to a certain level of preparation so they can deal with natural disasters, deal with terrorist attacks. We'll take somebody from back here. Yes?
Mr. Mayor, you internationally as a power leader in America seems to have diminished, not just as a power leader, but humanitarian and everything else. What's your vision internationally of America with our friends in Europe and Asia?
Well, that's a very, very good question. And it's one that I know a lot about because I spent a lot of time there in the last 6 years. I've been in Asia and in Europe, and I think 91 trips to foreign countries in 35 countries. I was in Japan, I think, 3 times last year. Singapore twice, a couple of others. Wherever I would go, not wherever, but most places I would go, there would be this issue of America sometimes under attack. Or on the other hand, we've got some really good friends. Japan is a wonderful friend of the United States. And you just think, we were at war with Japan. Isn't that a pretty remarkable thing I just said? Japan is a very close friend of the United States, and America is a very close friend of Japan. And we were at war with Japan. I can say anything about Germany and Italy, right? This country is a remarkable country. We're willing to make up, as soon as it's realistic, you want to make up with us. And the problems we have in the world, sure, there's one fundamental. The fundamental one is that we look at what has to be done about terrorism in a somewhat different way than large segments of Europe look at it. Not all of Europe, but large segments of Europe. We look at it much more from the point of view of we have to be on offense against terrorism. They look at it more from a defensive point of view. And their view prevails for about 30 years. And I think their view was wrong. I think their view is one of the reasons terrorism has gotten so big. And I think on this particular issue, we have to agree to disagree in a respectful way. It doesn't mean we can't find people in Europe that agree with us, but I have to say that that's probably at the core of some of the disagreements that are going on. And beyond that, I think America has to do a better job of protecting its reputation and defending it. I don't think that most of the people in the State Department, who are wonderful people, but I don't think they think of their job as protecting and defending the reputation of the United States. So, for example, I'd be in a foreign country. I won't mention the country so I don't create some kind of international incident, but I'd be in a foreign country and I'd be listening to television, either with English translation or English language broadcast or somebody translating for me. And there'd be these terrible attacks on the United States, all kinds of exaggerated claims about how unfair the United States is, or how terrible it is, or some of these exaggerated claims of torture, that America's doing this and America's doing that. And then nobody responded. I didn't see the ambassador on, American ambassador. I didn't see somebody from the State Department on. It just goes unresponded to. And here's the thing that really drove it home to me. A couple of years ago, my wife and I were in Milan. And we were sitting at a dinner that I was speaking at. And during the dinner, the lady, a very, very charming, wonderful, very well-educated Italian lady, told my wife something like, it must be really hard for you to be married to me. What is it? It must be really hard to be married to him because so many children die in New York because they don't get health care. Now, my wife's a nurse and knows the New York City hospital system really very, very well. And she was shocked. And she said, well, first of all, she explained that a lot of children don't die in New York City, and that New York City actually has universal health care. It has a New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation, and for 100 years, anybody sick in New York can go into one of the city hospitals and be taken care of completely. There have been big variations in the quality of that care, but it exists. So everybody gets health care in New York City. You can argue whether it's the best. I tried to improve it a lot. I think I did. So my wife explained that and explained the statistics in New York for the caring of children and for so many illnesses. And the statistics in the United States are much better than in Italy. There's just an article in the Wall Street Journal pointing that all out. And my wife gave her all these statistics. And the woman was shocked. And she said, nobody ever told me that before. This was not a woman who was inclined to dislike us. The minute she was told, she agreed with it. But nobody ever told her. She was sitting around from the time she saw that broadcast on television thinking that we don't care about children. No, how would she know the difference if somebody doesn't tell her? And as soon as my wife told her, she had a different view, or at least she was willing to look at it in a different way. Well, this happened about 3 years ago, and this has set off in my head the idea that that's what the American ambassador should do. When something appears on television in Italy or France or Japan or India or I don't care where it is, and it incorrectly describes the USA, then the ambassador should have a whole operation where they go on television, go on radio, let them in a newspaper, go in front of a group like this in one of those countries and say, here's what things are really like in the United States. This is the, do you know that in the United States, if you have prostate cancer, I know this because I had it, if you have prostate cancer, you have an 82% chance of surviving. If you have prostate cancer in England, you have only a 44% chance of surviving. If you have breast cancer, a woman has a much greater chance of surviving in the United States than in England or France or Canada. Do you know that? And they'll say, no, all we hear about is that you don't have universal health care. But we have a lot less people dying in this country. We save a lot more people from disease in this country. Then you can make the following point that they would get in a minute. Because I do this when I go to foreign countries. And they tell me, you don't have universal health care. I said, well, we don't have universal health care, but maybe we have, really good health care. Because, because who comes here for heart operations? And how often do you want to come to New York or Los Angeles or Minneapolis or Texas or Washington, D.C. or Maryland or to go to one of those great hospitals where you can get a heart operation or a cancer operation or, you're not like getting flooded here in Italy with people coming for operations. So what we have to do with healthcare is we've got to not change it, we've got to improve it. We don't